A land acknowledgement recognizes the essential and enduring connection between the Kwikwetlem First Nation and their traditional ancestral and unceded lands. We acknowledge that this Canada Day interview is taking place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Kwikwetlem First Nation. We thank the Quikwetlam, who continue to live on these lands and care for them, along with the waters and all that is above and below. Hi, I'm Brad Nickason, and I'm here today with Tri-City Community TV on the unceded ancestral lands of the Kwikwetlem First Nations people. Today we're shooting a Canada Day special for Tri-City Community TV, and we're here with the Kwikwetlem First Nations Chief Ed Hall. Ed, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Brad.
Ed, I have a lot of questions for you today about the Kwikwetlem Nation and your role here, and many of the things that I think many of the people in the Tri-Cities would be very interested to know. But first, I think that there's something very important that we should address. Given that we're here in the middle of June, it's only been a few days since we heard the news of what happened on the residential school in Kamloops. And I wonder if I could ask you your thoughts about that.
My take on the residential school findings recently was something that has not come as a shock, through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and all of the stories that the Honourable Justice Murray Sinclair, he sat as the chair through that, and he heard a lot of stories, and a lot of people have known this probably since about the 1990s, that there was probably some unmarked graves around, and some children. There's families out there that did not see their children come home. A lot of people thought that maybe the children just ran away, and it's not known if some of them had fallen into illness, but there is a lot of survivor stories right now that says that they went through a lot of abuse, physically, mentally, emotionally. There was food deprivations happening, purposely getting starved or not getting the essentials, that kind of thing. So the Kamloops thing, it's only just the beginning, and since then there was an announcement where one of the residential schools out in Manitoba, in Brandon, actually there was another 100 and something discovered there, and there is going to be a lot of ground penetrating radar done at a lot of the other sites that have already been closed for quite a few years, and it's kind of sad to know that that some of these schools operated, the last one right till as recently as 1996, but yeah, it's definitely something. It's not going to go away anytime soon. It's going to take a long time to get through all of the processes and identification, reaching out to communities where people will actually have stated that that they had a loved one that never came home. So there will be probably a lot of research done just on that. It's going to be a really time-consuming process to try and connect somebody back to where they were originally from, where they were taken from forcefully by the residential school operators, and I guess it would be RCMP too. I've heard may have escorted some of these people of the church and the schools, but it's really, really a sad thing, and a lot of these people that did not make it home, they would have been elders, and they probably would have had grandchildren and great-grandchildren, the lineages. Some of them did not get to pass down and into more generations. I'd have to say, the current survivors of nowadays, they're through things like that, there's a lot of deprivation of Indigenous knowledge, language, culture, and all sorts of like the beliefs systems that were passed down through the generations. So these are the kind of long-lasting effects, from the residential school. But these findings in Kamloops is, I don't know if I can compare it to like just a drop in the bucket, but to the best of my knowledge, I think there was about 150,000 Indigenous kids that went to residential schools across the country, across coast to coast to coast, Turtle Island. And that's only in Canada. That's not to say anything about whatever happened on the USA side. And so there is thousands of children that are unaccounted for, and 215. What is that compared to 150,000 that went to the schools? That the statistic came about through the governments and the studies and the reports and everything. So.
Ed, thanks for sharing that with us. That's I think that's a tragic and painful episode for all Canadians, but unimaginable for what First Nation people have gone through. Maybe we could move to closer to home and talk about your role here in the Quikwetlam First Nation. So from what I've learned just recently, I'm sorry, I'm just finding that out about you, but you are now the chief of the Quikwetlam First Nation. This is a new role for you. In the past, you've been a counselor. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a first-term chief.
Becoming a First Nation elected chief, for the first time, and at a stage in my life too where I've gone through different kinds of jobs and over the years and decades, just time itself has actually helped me prepare for it. I was favored to go into the election process by a couple of elders of the community, and the role itself is it is definitely high profile, but I'm here to try and build bridges with the the municipalities and the province and federally if need be, and but there's other elected officials within the country that actually do that. These roles here, they're kind of parallel with like a mayor and his councils or her councils, and we do have an elected regional chief too. That's kind of like parallel with the premier, and that's how it goes in a national chief. But to be elected here for the first time, it is quite an honor to be representing the people of the Kwikwetlem First Nation, and it can be very thankless work. It could be very long hours at times. You make a lot of sacrifice. It's just about like giving your life away to a community. You just got to live and breathe it, and and concentrate a lot of all of your strengths to try to make things better. It's for the betterment of everything in our being, and health and recreation and programs, and we have to try and pull all of these things together. And
So Ed, what I'd like to know is, are you finding that you're achieving the things that you set out to achieve?
Working with governments, a lot of us know that the public at large knows that things don't move at breakneck speed, and and sometimes in some situations things might move a little bit too fast, and you may have to ask people to let's have an information sharing and maybe provide it a little bit sooner, and then we can all be on the same page when we get to that next meeting. But for the most part, there's some pretty good collaboration going, and relation building the First Nation and the different government bodies that are out there in the province, and it's been pretty fair so far.
So that that makes me wonder about. So when you say you have a relationship with government bodies, and that, what's your relationship with just the general population in the Tri-Cities? How is that? People in the nation and interaction, say here, right in this area, right beside Colony Farms, your nation, right beside it. People are walking on the walking through the area quite often. What's your relationship with the people of the Tri-Cities?
That's pretty good. I've, in my role as a counselor before and as the chief now, I've been able to be out there and show up at events and whatnot. And there's a lot of people out there that they know we're here, and there's a lot of people that don't know that we're here. And there's probably a lot of people out there that knows who I am, but I don't know who they are because it's just just being a public image, and it's been pretty good for the most part. I mean, they haven't had any trouble of late. There hasn't been any acts of racism, I guess.
Yeah.
Unless you want me to say, no, it's been pretty good. This has been a regular thing here, except until when the pandemic came along. We actually had to have a secure checkpoint, and we actually got the Metro Parks, the regional park operators, to actually shut this road down, and people can go along the Colony Farm Gardens to my right there and go along the path there, and then they can rejoin the road here again and the trail networks, which it eventually connects to the old Poco Trail, Trombley Trail, and it's a very, very nice area to be outside and enjoying the outdoors and nature and everything. The people, it's been pretty good.
So there is that good relationship.
Yeah.
Relative good relationship. The reason I ask that is because, and I'm going to just speak for me, maybe somewhat uninformed citizen at times, but the Quikwetlam Nation is a bit of a mystery to me, and that's why I asked that question. Yeah. It's because I think of myself as somebody who really wants to learn as much as possible about First Nations in general in Canada, and literally one of my neighbors is the Kwikwetlem Nation, so I want to find out about that, and that's why that question is really interesting to me, and I'm guessing that's really interesting to a lot of people. People, I think, are hungry for that kind of information. And so I think I'm going to let this take me a little bit towards what's going on in on Pitt River Road. The Quikwetlam Nations has an industrial park.
It's a future business park.
A future business park that's going on. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's going on there, and maybe a little bit about what the politics of it look like, if that's so. If that interests you, to tell us that.
Yeah, I could touch on that. I know there's a lot of residents that are along the perimeters there, in the neighborhoods nearby there and adjacent to it, and that the First Nation does have aspirations to build it up, but it's not going to build up very fast. It's probably going to take 15 to 20 years, and the aspirations for the first project on there would be to have like a health-related type building, and then that would have services that would complement the other services that are around throughout the Tri-Cities, and might have holistic services. That's a good possibility. I know that just from having been to a couple of different hospitals and doctors' offices throughout the region, the systems are really strained, and there's just not enough of those kind of services around to accommodate the growing population of the whole area. And so that is probably one of the first things that we would like to actually have on that site, and then just to build it up just for a little while, over a number of years. There's probably about 3 phases on there, and the second one we'd probably like to build it up a little bit. What exactly that would look like, I do not know. We've had community engagement with consultants, and there's been artists, renderings of what it could look like, and we've had multiple options there, from some of these consultants that do this good work, and we've put it to our KFN people to, just to try and pique their interest on what the future of that site may look like. And the thinking now is, see, we have that land base there, but we're kind of essentially borrowing from the future to make something happen now, because we don't have great vast amounts of money to make programs and everything too, and to staff everything. So what we essentially want to do, after developing some of it, is leave some of it open so that the next generation can have something to work with. And maybe there'll be a demand for something else, and they'll have a land base to be able to do it, and they won't have to worry about tearing down buildings there to make way for something there that's more desirable of the day then. So we're planning it and wanting to do it gradually. We don't want to just come in and just suddenly build up a great big business park, and this is what everybody has to see and stuff. So it's definitely taking a lot of careful planning and thinking going into it, and we want to be able to make sure that future generations they will be self-sustained, and also at the same time 20 years down the road be able to build something there that they want to see.
So that's what that business park is about creating a base with which the nation can sustain itself.
Yeah.
Is that, I've kind of got that right?
Absolutely
right.
Correct.
Okay. And from what I understand, developing it slowly and over time for future generations, so that as trends change, so will it will be repurposed to fit what needs are of the time, which makes a ton of sense. But I'm really interested in the concept of a wellness center. A wellness center, is that how you framed it, or did you?
Holistic wellnesses, and which won't just address one thing. There might be different professional services available too. It could be optometry, dentistry, general practitioners. Just a general kind of a professionals, maybe counseling in there. There, just a wide variety of services to
and does that
people.
And does that just service the Quikwetlam Nation, or does that service the greater population of the Tri-Cities?
It would be more open to everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably with the priority of making sure that whoever's working in their professionals there, that the Quikwetlam membership will have priority to become a patient of such and such professional practices that are in there. And I know that like even just over the last number of years, or just talking with different people, there isn't like a regular family doctor. A lot of people are just going into the walk-in clinics and that. So hopefully, adding more of these kinds of facilities, nearby, may be able to help with the strain. And I know the cities, they have plans to build hundreds and hundreds of units of residential places, and you have to be able to move along to be able to accommodate those kind of things with different services available. And the cities will know that there's going to be quite a bit of strain on their own systems that they have now if there isn't any more added to it a little ways down the road. In the next few years, it's just it's really just a no-brainer to add more things like that, services like that around.
It is good business, and it's a good investment, I think,
for sure.
for you. You talked about the aspect that is around wellness, and so something that makes me really curious is there going to be an element of, or I'm going to ask it this way: is it the healthcare that you're talking about there? Is that going to be Western healthcare, or will there be an element of First Nation healthcare in it? Because I'm fascinated by that.
Is this over at our business park?
Yeah.
Or over at Quikwetlam business park?
In the business park.
Well, that'll be up to the people to decide, but it could be both.
Who wants to move in? So if a dentist practitioner wants to move in,
sure.
the idea is that there will be space there for them. That augments the space that's already in the area, which is great. And the thing that I think is attractive about that is its location. It's great location. So you just mentioned the word Semikwela. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, Quikwetlam, which is the former Riverview lands. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that, because there's that element of healthcare. That is the history of it, is healthcare in there, but it is slowly changing. There are a couple of new buildings. Maybe you could speak to what's going on over there, and how Kwikwetlem, the Kwikwetlem Nation, fits in that area as well.
Okay. Yeah, so just a couple of years back, we had an opening for an Indigenous youth mental wellness facility, and so that's going along really good. They got great programs in there, and there is another project at the north end of the site, and it's going to be for adults of all ages and background, and it's going to be 105 beds, and that should be opening up sometime by the end of the summer. And so the thing that'll be happening at Quikwetlam is there's been public engagement processes, and we of the Kwikwetlem First Nation too are going to be having meetings with our membership, and it's about planning processes, and that they aren't going to go very fast. It's about wanting to put more things in there, and hopefully not changing the footprint of the hill there. I know there's a lot of people that are advocating for all of the nature that's around there now with the trees and everything too, but to add in maybe more some more health complementary stuff, and maybe somewhere along the way there could be some housing property. We can build some units there too, for because we actually are short on housing space here, and here we are in the floodplain, and it's safer on the hill. The hill historically has been used as a safe haven to get away from high waters, and and also to go there and harvest the different things that used to grow in the grounds naturally way back in the earlier generations, and also to evade raiders too. Some of the regions here, they used to have very strong raiders coming from different directions, and they'd probably do take resources, take women, whatnot. The Haida were known for that, coming down the coast and doing that historically hundreds of years ago. But yeah, to build up the hillside, a little bit, it's going to take a long time. There's a lot of cleanup to be done. Some of the buildings they're just asbestos laden as anything from an earlier era, and it really needs to eventually get cleaned up at some point, and it's going to be a costly endeavor, and it's not going to happen overnight. Now some of the buildings there, I think, are earmarked for heritage preservation. They are very nice looking buildings. I've been fortunate to be able to go tour in a couple of them, and actually the BC film industry keeps themselves quite busy there, and my understanding is the monies that they pay, I guess the productions that they got to pay something, and that just helps keep the grounds maintained. And and KFN is not a benefactor of that. Nobody's been there to join in on any films or anything. It's just something that's been arranged with BC Housing some years ago, and it works pretty good for them and whatnot. And we are actually forming a really good working relationship with the BC Housing, and and they really do a marvelous job when it comes to addressing some housing shortage in some areas. At least they aren't able to accommodate everything, because as we know, there's a lot of places in different regions, cities that are actually short on the land base and whatnot, and everything else is getting built up new around them. And of course, real estate is getting very costly nowadays. And but from my experience with BC Housing, and the former minister, and now she's the finance minister, she's been doing a really good job with everything now. And now it's Minister Eby who's actually overseeing that portfolio of housing, and we're just building relation. It's kind of like new beginnings with Minister Eby now, because he's newly into that position, and seeing that portfolio through. But I can anticipate some good things happening. Working with BC Housing, and maybe co-managing a couple of projects that might come into play, get constructed over there.
So it's in the visioning process.
Yes,
From
it
what I
is.
understand, you
It
guys
is.
are starting to figure out what could be done on that land,
Yeah.
and there's no final decisions made at this point.
No.
But you're moving forward
Yes.
in that process. I personally have some friends who would be very upset with me if I didn't ask. And I hope this isn't too controversial, but I'm just going to ask a little bit on the benefit of the trees. What is your view with regard to the trees that are in there? Because there's an arbor. Is it an arboretum? Is the word? There are some very historic trees. Are there? Are you going to try to save some of those, or are you going to save all of them, or what's this?
They have an inventory of about, I think it's about 1,500 trees, and they are, imported from all over the world. And I have been approached by a couple of people, and they
My
said,
friends. I'm sure that they're my
I've got
friends.
some friends there too
Yeah.
that are, all about the trees and preservation and everything. And I myself love there's not enough trees being planted everywhere, and I'll be the first one to say it. There's probably about 0.9 billion hectares around the globe that is bare naked of trees, and they could be planted on, and and then we probably wouldn't have an ozone depleting as fast as it is, and having the weather patterns going crazy like they do. Trees are very important, but the trees there, about the 1,500 or so that are left. I know they had about 1,800 there, but I think some are marked for they get tested by the arborist professionals there, and there's some eventually have to come down, but I know that I have said publicly that I'd like to be able to see all of the native tree species replace the ones that do come down. But I know I've also been told too that it's getting difficult for red cedars and yellow cedars to be able to thrive nowadays because of the climate change. It's getting to a point, especially at these elevations here, that that they won't be able to thrive as well as they once upon a time used to be able to. And to be able to find areas like that, now we have to go right up into the higher reaches of into the mountains, the Quikwetlam Lake and that, to be able to see where they really thrive. And I think there's probably just probably too much drainage off of this hill too to for the native trees to be surviving. So the trees that are there now, I do have an appreciation for them. I've gone through there, and I've stopped, I've taken pictures, and I've jokingly, I've actually followed a coyote through there. It's like these animals stalk, and then I'm So I've had an appreciation for what's been growing there, and I do know some of the folks that are in the tree advocacies, and I just found out about a name of one where it used to be under a name Heritage, but now it's like a Wholesome Tree Fellowship or something. I think is a new one.
I think those are my friends. So the
Yeah.
Wondrous Tree Fellowship.
Wondrous, thank you.
Yeah.
I just learned that name
Yeah.
just the other day, and I got friends.
And I think that I think it's the consideration. I think most of all, I think people, those of us who are really concerned about the trees, are hoping that people will do everything they can to save trees when we can. And development happens, and there is progress, and unfortunately sometimes we lose trees, but we are hoping, I think everybody's hoping, that nowadays with climate change we are as considerate about how we develop around those as possible. But I'm sure is a sensitive spot, and I apologize profusely for putting you on the spot with regard to that question.
Yeah. That's fine. Like I'm all about tree preservation too, and as I mentioned earlier in the interview too, I would not want to see a change in the footprint. I've probably been on record to say that I don't want to see skyscraping buildings around here or anything. Like I just don't like the looks of it. You look around over there now. What do you see? I actually have a picture in my phone gallery, and it shows what this all looked like in 1962. And the original Portman Bridge was just under construction, so
Right.
and there was hardly anything around over here on the side of the water.
Right.
And it's just amazing to still be able to see pictures around of what once was. And we can always everybody can work collectively and try to bring some of that back, just for the future of the next generations.
And thinking about the future
Yeah,
generations.
yeah, that's what we are usually about. Well, in the Indigenous world, we can think back, 7 generations, and we think forward 7 generations. And when it comes to the issues out there, sometimes it'll take up to 7 generations to resolve and come back to some kind of a normalcy. And the trees around here, if we could see that grow exponentially to like a more and more, that'd be great, because we need it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need it. The environment needs it.
Especially when we're thinking, as you've put it very well, as we're thinking about those future generations and what we're going to leave them. Something you just said absolutely fascinates me. What you said with what's on your phone. Maybe we can use that as a way to segue into the history of your nation in this area. As we look around, it is right in this spot, spectacularly beautiful on a day like today. But at the same time, we see encroaching on this particular beautiful space buildings in the distance everywhere around. Maybe you can tell us about the history of the Quikwetlam Nation as far back as you want to go, and tell us, because I think that we have a sense that as people who are what we call now settlers, as we live in the land, we wonder which was the into the Tri-Cities. We ask, what was the Quikwetlam's nation? What was their land? And maybe you can shed some light on exactly what that land was. Like, how far did the Quikwetlam Nation stretch?
Thank you for the great question. The Quikwetlam Nation, it used to be just vast in numbers, and its core territories is where we are now at this interview. And the traditional territories, I mean, we went as far over as New Westminster and over to just the other side of the banks of the Fraser in Surrey, over to the western banks of the Pitt River, and we went all the way up beyond Coquitlam Lake, and then over to the right traditionally with Catesy, and then that's our traditional territory, and then we've went as far over as the Indian Arm, pretty much up above Port Moody and Ioko, and the communities over that way, and down along the edges of like Burnaby and Coquitlam there, and then down into New West, and then over to here. And so from what I can imagine and what I have heard, a lot of these areas used to be just vast forests. And one thing that I like to point out when I talk about vast forests that used to be here is like a lot of people actually have had encounters with bears throughout the Tri-Cities and whatnot, and it really hurts me to know that conservation has to come along, and so they're labeled as a menace bear or whatever, so they get put down. They are descendants of what used to roam around here freely 200 years ago, and they have just as much right there as the people that are living in the neighborhood that encroached on their world, mm-hmm. their land. But Quikwetlam used to be once upon a time in the thousands, and traditionally it's called Quikwetlam, which translates to red fish up the river, and what that describes is a vast. There's another big numbers for you. Sockeye salmon that used to come here back in the springtime. So we're in June now. We're in late spring, but these fish used to return earlier, like about April or May, and they used to come here back within the first half of the 1900s, and they ended up getting pretty much depleted because of the hydroelectric dam that got put in up the river there, and that Quikwetlam Lake there. And there is no fish ladder, so since then we've done trap and truck programs in the last 22 years. And it has been discovered too that there is descendants of that old sockeye run. They've now become landlocked, and they're like a kokanee, so they've been DNA tested, and there's some something the fish that used to go in their cycles 115 years ago, 120 years ago, and further back, up this river channel here, which is only probably a couple hundred meters away from where we're sitting here. And I have an elder in the community who has spoken of like back in the mid 1950s, this river used to be so deep. You can imagine how deep the hull of a gill netter vessel is. It's 24 to 30 feet long, and how deep that reaches down below the surface of the water. 4 of them used to line up there at the mouth of the Quikwetlam River, right at the Fraser, and they used to have races with each other. The camaraderie at its best. The fisher people would be heading up there, and then they would go up as far as they can to the Bailey Bridge at Pitt River Road there, and then it would be too shallow there to continue on. But I think that was probably a funny and fast race with 4 vessels that's going up there and probably just creating waves all over the place. And but the fishing back in an earlier time, the Quikwetlam, there's stories, oral history that says that you almost couldn't even see the water across from one bank to the other. It could be so much fish coming along the surface there, you could just see all their backs and their heads and fins and everything sticking out of the water. And you'd be able to almost get from one bank to the other without even touching the water because there was so much fish.
And that's now a fishery that's lost to us.
Pretty much, yeah. So the First Nation has been working with folks in Fishery Alliance and Department of Fisheries and Oceans, DFO, and we've been working on projects, and we're going to get an installation of a fish hatchery on the Quikwetlam River. And some folks that have been in the region here long enough there might know, since about 2010 we had the Wilson Farm project, which is just north of here, just behind me, and it goes over there about a kilometer and a half, and along the Dyke Road trail systems here. And so there we had installations of tidal flap gates there too, so when the water came up high, it gave those little smolt fish places to go and try and grow and just have a safe place to be in that, away from the predators. And within 12 months of that project being completed, there was 5 species of fish that actually found their way into those tidal flap gates, and they go around the water channels and the Wilson Farms just over there. And so we're doing everything that we can, because we really hold that dear close to our hearts there about fish enhancement projects, because the First Nation is named after that salmon, Quikwetlam, redfish up the river. And you think of the neighboring cities here. Coquitlam is an anglicized English version of that very name, and then Port Coquitlam, same thing. And so we're all about this building up this area, with its environmental practices, and trying to enhance and trying to seek out as much funding as we can, and create employment too, to be guardians and continue the stewardship of the area, this river and everything. And sometimes it's been challenging, but there is some nice positive steps going forward on it now.
So it's building over time. Hey, I gotta. As we were talking, I just had this little. A question kept coming into my head, and I want to ask it to you. Did you grow up here?
Great question, and a quick answer is no, I didn't. I used to come and visit here as a child. My earliest memories of it are probably over at the other pulse, where we are now. This is in my language of Hunkaminam, it's called Slakayans.
Where we are right now, this particular location.
Yeah, which is Little Salmon, and over there is where the future business park is. It's
Right.
called Set Slomukman, which is like a phrase of when the water is high, that's where we go. It's a tidal terminology.
Yeah.
And so there used to be a village over there, and but it was memories of the area here that back to when I was about 7 or 8 years of age.
So you were visiting somebody here.
I was visiting. Yeah, I had a grand uncle that used to live over there on the Port Quikwetlam side.
Okay.
And I didn't really know too much about the area here. My mother was born here.
Yeah.
And a couple other elders that are here, and the familiarity started coming to me a little bit in the early and mid 90s, and then more so in this new century of the 2000s. And I
That's when your connection became much stronger in this particular area.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So what are the changes that you saw over the time? So this would be your direct memory. What are the changes that you remember from your earliest memories to now? Like just in general.
Yeah, well, I used to go with some of the older cousins in the area back in the 70s there, and early 70s, and we used to go hiking along trails and picking huckleberries and things like that, and so the memories are very vague. Then we're going back pretty almost close to 50 years, but
So which ones are the huckleberries? I'm like not the smartest guy when it comes to that.
they're a little red one. They're about comparable to a smaller blueberry. They're about the same size.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, they just grow on a little bush and usually around stumps and whatnot.
Okay.
But there used to be quite the trail systems below Mary Hill over here before it started becoming known as Citadel Heights and whatnot. In fact, that area over there used to be like deer hunting grounds and whatnot. Wow. And I actually just saw a couple of deers over there earlier this week over at the business park. And the area has become really well developed. Of course, because I didn't live here at those times that too, so my memories are vague of traveling around or going to town here or anything like that. But there are other band members that have lived here for pretty much the majority of their lives, and they're up into they're reaching age now too where they could very well become grandparents in the next 10 years or so. And the areas like I've seen, like even just Cape Horn Interchange grow and accommodate more vehicles on it, and the changing of the bridge spanning over from Coquitlam to Surrey, the multiple lanes now in both directions, and the development going up the mountainsides there along Burke, and that's really growing fast. And then on the west side of the city too, there's going to be a lot of towers over there, in more recent memory. But it's the area here, there is desires to have infrastructures, because we only have one route to come into here and one out, so it makes it kind of complicated for emergencies when there's a train track over there. And I've seen one time where I was on one side for 30 minutes and there was a staff member on the other side waiting for this train to go by, and he was there for 45 minutes.
Wow.
And so infrastructure, there's a desire to have that too. So the build-up is really not finished around here. We might have something that comes around, like over at the far end of Colony Farm Road there, that might be able to span over the top of the crossing there or something.
Right.
And then there's the Pitt River Road Lougheed connection there. That one is another one that kind of complicates traffic at times. So there's a desire to build up the infrastructure there too that'll help keep the traffic moving, and people will be able to stay with their schedules that they've committed to.
Yeah, are those things that you're talking to the federal government with regard to? Because those would come under federal government.
Yeah, with the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure and that's provincially. And we've been in the meetings with that too, just so that we can, so that all people are involved in the talks and consultation and input and everything too, so that that we can maybe incorporate some ideas that we have, we don't want everything to be to colonize. We're trying to decolonize it. So we're talking about even having art, like installations, with some of these infrastructures. Like you go over the bridge at Pitt Meadows there to North Langley there, and I mean, you look at the top of that structure, and it's got like eagle sculptures on there and whatnot, and
that they've incorporated into it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had talks with the Ministry of Transport on these kinds of ideas and that too, and we've had really good meetings, with us, and these kind of things are probably going to be. We'll take a look at the area maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, and we might see those changes. Physically changing the appearance of the area as it looks right now. So it is something we don't want too much to happen, but we know we have to kind of go with the times too,
Yeah.
and progress is necessary.
You've been telling me, so as we've been speaking, you've been telling me the story a lot, and I really appreciate how much you've shared with me. But one of the storylines that I'm hearing through the conversation with you is this push and pull. The part of your job is to work with the government as you're moving forward into the future. You're trying to develop the nation for its people and improve infrastructure and things like that. But at the same time, there's that you're coming head on to that historic, the historic nation where we didn't have hills on or houses on Mary Hill, and I can visualize, you guys walking through that forest on a trail network, watching the wildlife go through what is now streets and streets of houses. That it speaks to the job that you're doing, and how is that on you? Is that a role that you enjoy, or is it more of a role that you have to do?
That's a great question, and I would really put that on to. It really depends on the individual, how much they like talking to, outside agencies, and building relations. Are you a people person, or do you connect well?
But
with,
how about you?
with
How
others?
about you? How is it for you?
I find that I connect quite well with people. When I'm on top of my game, I can I have a good conversation with people in the governing powers of the province and the cities, and I've been told I have a way of bringing people together, and having that conversation, and I'm not the only one that does it too. I have my colleagues here that are all a part of it, and I'm just part of a group that does that, and so it's it's been pretty good to to have these relations, and try to get the conversation started. Sometimes the conversations are very hard, and and we won't be able to get an answer, but for the most part it has been pretty good to to have some asks addressed, to make a little change to something. Maybe that presentation didn't quite work, how we wanted it. Maybe let's try to tweak it a little bit and make it look this way, and see if if it'll go well that way. And so we've done that. And
so you're telling me a little bit about the your experience on working on these relationships and that. So that brings me back into relationships overall, and how it's going. I want to push you a little bit on that, like how you feel about your relationships when it comes to doing these things. There is a bit of a it sounds like a bit of finessing to get in there, but I'm sure that's a bit of push and pull when you're doing things like the business park. Maybe you can comment a little bit more about that. Maybe we can talk in that area.
Okay, the business park has been it's been a ongoing project that's probably about 20 years now, and it's taken a good time to fill it and everything. And with the First Nation itself has actually had struggles with trying to get services into the business park. So we want to be able to, hook up great big water lines and, have all of the hydroelectric come in and that, and off of the city's connections and that, and it's been a battle for about a half a dozen years now, and it's been very costly for the First Nation, because we've actually went into a title and rights case, which I cannot really speak too much to right about now, and that is a matter that's in the courts and it's ongoing. And building a relation. There is a new mayor over there, in the vicinity of where the business park is, but he has sat on the council for 10 years prior to that, and the title and rights case, land claims, in other words, was brought into the view when we had the previous Port Coquitlam mayor sitting over there, and so that. It has been a little bit challenging to try and meander around and navigate to build a relation for that, and so it has taken lawyers on both sides and that too, but it also is going to take engineers from both sides to work things out, some fine little details to be able to make some progress in there, and make some connectivities be able to happen. So these are things that are being worked on these days now as we speak, and I couldn't tell you when. We might lose another construction season. For every year that goes by, we lose an opportunity to put up a building, some part of the plan there that the community has worked towards, and to be able to go towards our goal of being self-sustaining. And every year that we don't have services and buildings there is how can you put a number on the revenue that could be coming in from that, depending on what businesses you have set up on there. So
even if it wasn't specific numbers for revenue, it's an issue of, it just pushes it farther down the road, how long it takes to become a self-sustaining nation, and part of that is your First Nations land. And just so that I can be clear, because of what I heard, it's the city of Port Coquitlam, of the Tri-Cities, it's the city of Port Coquitlam that you interface with, and you're trying to make some kind of agreement where you connect into what is their hydroelectric power and their sewerage and things like that. Have I got that correct?
That would be correct.
Right.
Yes.
So okay, and that's a relationship, and what's happening is, from what I'm hearing, and it's the first time I've ever heard this sort of thing. I've known there's been tension between Port Coquitlam and Quikwetlam the Quikwetlam Nation in the past, but I've never understood that. But this is one of those issues, those intersections, that there's a problem, and it's mostly, are you saying, in the city of Port Coquitlam's power to speed that process up?
I would have to agree that it's the ball is in their court, and we have a willingness to work through some details, and when it comes to engineering aspects and that, and I don't know exactly what those are, but there might be 5 or 6 things that needs to be addressed through engineering and all of that, and outside of that there's 3 other options, and the price tag starts to go up exponentially to be able to eventually tie into Metro or tie into Coquitlam, or go self-servicing and all of that, but it's it would seem like it should be much easier and make more economic sense and everything to actually just tie in with the Port Coquitlams, even if we had to build it up, to be able to handle a little bit more capacity. But
I have a question, a strange question. You might know this or you might not, but when Coquitlam's hydroelectric and their sewage comes up to the border of Port Coquitlam, does it all shut off, or do they somehow find a way to share? a little bit of a rhetorical question,
Yeah.
because I think they learn how to share.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, there is metro piping that goes by nearby the parcel over there, and Coquitlam's is not too far away. You know, there's been a thought before, but it'd be an expensive endeavor to do a hydraulic directional drill.
I'm not asking
Yeah,
you to
yeah,
adapt your things.
yeah.
I'm wondering why. It seems like a pretty simple thing. It's not, and I'm not asking it of you. I think that should be thing. You know, one of the things that happens when I do interviews and stuff like this, one of the things that happens rarely is I actually do research for the things. I did this time. I went into the United Nations. What is UNDRIP? It's the United Nations
Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous
Yeah,
Peoples.
and I'm pretty sure, and I read it fast, but I'm pretty sure there's a thing that says that one of the rights of Indigenous people is not to have their ability to economically take care of themselves be impeded.
You've been doing your homework, and here's a thought for the general populace. Where does everybody around this area get their water from when it comes through their faucets and flush their toilets and run through their showers and clean their laundry? Where does that water come from? It comes from Quikwetlam Lake.
Quikwetlam Lake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that feeds Port Coquitlam, Port Moody, New Westminster, Surrey, and forget if I've missed a couple others there. Maybe Anmore and Belcarra or something.
But is the point you're making that that's part of the Kwikwetlem First Nation's land?
It's in our traditional territory. We have ancient village.
That's right. It's a shared resource.
Yes.
It's a convenient shared relationship that was able to be created.
Yeah.
So what you've done is you've made me shake my head, because I mean, I think that we talked about this before the camera was going, a little bit about colonization and things like that, and so it gives me pause. I think this is what when people hear the words colonization bandied about, and when they talk about reconciliation, this is part of the process. Us as essentially two different nations beginning to come together. Yeah. That's reconciliation, is it not? A small piece of it.
It's a small fraction of it, and reconciliation too. I can define it a little bit. I like to think of the letter R. You know, it's recognition and respect, and those are a couple of them. I think there's probably a couple more that that go along those lines, but they are definitely something that. It'd be nice that if everybody worked with it.
I think that the most important thing is that we have to become aware that this work needs to be done. This work needs to be done, and it's not just a one-way street. I'm searching for a way to say this correctly, so forgive me if I blow it. But it's settlers. I guess that's the best way to say it. This is work that settlers. The people who came after Indigenous people, this is the work that we have to do. Just because we haven't had to do it in the past, we have to sit with that. It's as uncomfortable as it can be for us at times. We have to sit with it and understand it and do it. Is that kind of right?
That is very good, and I have a great appreciation for the province's provincial leadership to adopt in UNDRIP and DRIPA, which is Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. So that is the actual document and implementation, but the other one is like an international acronym, and it fits very well here. And for BC to take the lead on that, we are going to be setting precedents. It's not going to happen overnight, and Canada is taking that baton too, and they're going to try and there's a lot of complicated things that have to be sorted out, but things are going to take time, and maybe a generation or two from now, they might be able to see all of the reap all of the rewards and the comforts of all of that being fully implemented. I don't know how long it could really take, but it could be 5 years, 10 years down the road from now, and I might be retired by the time you start seeing UNDRIP and DRIPA coming fully into play, and it's a great thing that BC is making a move towards, and Canada is going to eventually start moving it around, throughout the rest of the country too, and try to make it work. And there's a lot of work ahead of us, and it's going to take a lot of people to do it. And people will be in now, in different offices, in different levels of government, working with it. And, I've even talked to the ministers, and we've had simple conversations, walk in the park, and we're saying to each other, what does it look like? There is no template, but it's recognition and respect is a good start, and and acknowledgement of where we are in this place. I call this area here a country within the cities. And it's it always feels good to be here. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of work by a lot of people and
Ed,
all different directions.
it seems that the Canadian government is putting through quickly a motion or a rule of law that First Nation people can use their traditional name on their ID going forward. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that kind of came as a surprise because a lot of traditional Indigenous names are very hard to pronounce. There's so many dialects, and there's about 30 different languages here just in this province alone. And even my traditional name actually took a lot of practice to be able to say it. And the thing about it is it seems like it's just dangling a little carrot, but I'm sure something like that probably could have been taken care of maybe a long time ago, as some folks might think. But it also is a little bit complicated too, depending on some computer programs too, because you have to be able to download different keyboards, and I have not been able to do this with my own work laptop, and I have been able to with my own personal home computer. And to be able to have these different characters on the keyboard, the software has to be able to do that. And so that might be a pricey endeavor, on the government's part, to be able to change all of that. Maybe get a bunch more software into their networks, where they do passport printing and that kind of thing. And of course all of the places where they're going to keep records of it, unless people get really fancy with a copy and paste or something there, they might be able to do it and and get it onto those passport documents. But I wonder how that would be. I certainly wouldn't want to hear them talking about great big numbers that it's going to cost to do the software. So that section of the country over there is not going to be able to have it done until 2 years from now's next budget kind of thing. It's just
There are a lot of issues involved in this.
yeah,
I never even thought of that.
Maybe there was a lot of thinking put into it. Maybe there wasn't. I cannot say because I'm not there. But I just know what it takes to be able to type a traditional name just on a piece of paper or in the computer screen at home. And I can do it on my phone because I was able to do that. But I think Windows 10 itself is been a little bit tricky. I've even worked with an IT person to try and be able to do that, and some of the staffing, of the administration that I'm a part of, they actually have gotten pretty handy with copy and paste. So, yeah. So,
Workarounds.
Yeah.
Workarounds.
Workarounds. Yeah. But it might make some people happy, but I've only ever owned a passport for about 10 years myself, and traveled very little, but I'm quite content to just have the names that I've always carried, on there. But maybe it'll be like a nice novelty to have Quikwetlam on there.
But there will be people who find that interesting.
Yeah.
Let me just follow up very quickly with this question, because we're speaking about a language that the majority of Canadians don't recognize and won't know how to pronounce. But maybe you can tell me some of the names in the general area, some of the names that people that they don't know, but where the city they come from, what its original name might have been. I've slaughtered that question, but I hope you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, it's all known as Quikwetlam, so I wouldn't want to mislead the the residents of the Tri-Cities to think that it was all Coquitlam at one time, but it was all Quikwetlam
Quikwetlam,
territory.
right?
Yes, and I did mention earlier that the place where we sit now is Slakayans, and over well behind me, a couple kilometers away, it's Set Slomikman,
Okay.
and yeah, and there's other things, there's other features around. Quikwetlam is just across the highway from here, the former Riverview, or sometimes its nickname is Heron Hill, and Quikwetlam is the place of the great blue heron, and
Which is beautiful. Which is a
yeah,
beautiful name.
and then there is some small traditional name sites that are very sacred that are not far from here, and some have been lost due to development and not enough archaeological practices, and all of the regulations that they have to follow with, through the provincial departments, and but there is a lot, and I don't have the map handy with me right now, but there is numerous names of places that go from here right up to the watershed and beyond through the different areas, and I'd be glad to share that with you another time if we wanted to touch down on a conversation there that covers a lot of the traditions
That'd be great.
that are around here, and I'd be open to another conversation.
I'd
that
love
would,
to do that.
cover that.
This has been a Canada Day special for Tri-City Community TV, for the people in the beautiful Tri-Cities where we share this land that is traditionally the Quikwetlam peoples. So thank you very much.
Namakwa, you're welcome.